All right, so we're talking about circles. Basically, the definition of a circle is a set of all points equidistant from a given point called the center. So what that's saying is, in the center of your circle, every point around it is going to be the exact same distance. Okay? That would be a perfect circle. All right? Just like our parabola, we have a standard form. The standard form of the circle, and you may want to make that notation and just write the word circle next to it so you know. The standard form for this circle is x minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. The center of your circle that we talked about a second ago is hk. Okay? And the radius of your circle obviously is r. You guys have been introduced, you know about circles enough to know r is radius. Again, the center is the coordinates hk. Now, the one thing that you need to notice that's a little bit different than the parabolas is on the parabolas, we only had h in the middle, right? Or k, depending on which direction the parabola is opening up. But we only had one squared term. Now we have two squared. Okay? And not only do we have two squared, but they're both inside parentheses and they both have minus. So what does that tell you about h and k when you come down here? Opposite. On both of them, not just one. On the other one we had just one. Now we have both of them. That when you pull that h and k out of the formula, it's going to be the opposite. Okay? All right, so let's take a look at the first and the most easy part. Most easy. Okay? And that is going to be write the equation for the circle. And they're giving us the center of the circle and they're giving us the radius. So, what's our standard form again? X minus h squared plus y minus k squared equals r squared. All I got to do now is fill in. So I have x minus what? Plus 1. It's plus 1. Okay, x, I'm just not skipping any steps right now. So x minus 1 squared plus y minus 3 squared equals 3 squared, right? So then if I simplify like you guys are already doing, x plus 1 squared plus y minus 3 squared equals what? 9, right? And that's it. Okay, any questions on that? That should be the easiest of the easy. Okay, that's it. Doesn't get much more difficult than that as far as this particular type of problem. Okay, so the question always comes up when you start very easy like that is, oh, that's it? No, it gets more difficult, and it doesn't get a lot more difficult because the truth is what's going to happen is we're going to go and we're going to add in midpoint formula, we're going to add in distance formula, and then we're also going to do some completing the square. So everything that we've learned to this point is going to be incorporated in this particular section. So let's look at our next example. Our next example isn't giving us the center anymore. On the contrary, it's giving us a diameter of, with the endpoints, 2, 8, and 2, negative 2. So, in order for me to find something, what would I need to do? Midpoint. What is the midpoint going to find us? The center of the circle. So, if we want to find the center of the circle, let's use the midpoint formula, which is what?
M equals x1 plus x2 over 2, comma.
Okay, so m equals x1 plus x2 over 2 and y1 plus y2 over 2. So we just fill in our points. So m equals, what is x1?
2.
And then x2? 2. So 2 plus 2 over 2. And y1?
8.
Okay, and y2? Negative 2 over 2. So then we continue to simplify. M equals 4 over 2 and 6 over 2. So then M equals 2, 3. So our center now is 2, 3. So what do you know about H and K?
H is 2 and K is 3.
H is 2 and K is 3. So we've almost got everything that we need in order to write an equation in standard form. But what are we missing? Radius. So how do we find this? There's two ways.
Use that formula.
Okay, hang on. That's a good... Shh, hang on one second. She said plug it in and solve for r, which is actually an interesting concept. Okay? That's probably the most difficult way to do it because you can plug in and solve for r because you do have a point. Okay? And you do have h and k now. Okay? But that's probably the hardest way.
Only that you have both endpoints to diameter, wouldn't you just find divide using the distance formula and then divide it by 2 to find the radius?
Okay, yeah, he said now take the distance formula and plug in the points that they gave you for the diameter and divide it by 2. Okay, and that'll give you the radius, because once you have the diameter, you know the radius is half of that, right? So that's a little easier.
Or use the distance formula, plug in the midpoint on one end of the diameter.
So then or you could use the distance formula and use the midpoint down here and one of the points that it gave you. Now, all three of those things are fine, and you could use all three of those methods to solve, huh?
Can't you just cut those with power?
No, it won't work like that. Now, so all three of those are fine and good ideas. The question is, what do you want to do? And I would not do what she said because that's more difficult, but it's a good idea. Okay? And really, the difference between what Lane said and what Kyle said isn't much. Okay? The only thing is that here's what I would do. I would do this. I would use these points. Why? Because they gave us these points. Where did this point come from? Our own work came up with that. Now,
they give us, we know it's right.
yeah, you know it's right because that's what they gave us. So I'm going to start with that. I would use that always. But here's the deal. In hindsight, or in the big picture of all things, it's not going to make any difference. Because if I screwed this up, the whole thing's going to be screwed up anyways. So it doesn't matter which one I use. But I'm going to go ahead and use the distance formula. And I'm going to use the 2 points they gave us. So we have D. So x2 minus x1 squared plus y2 minus y1 squared. So D equals square root of, okay, 2 minus 2 squared plus negative 2 minus 8 squared. So that's going to give me D equals square root of 0 squared plus negative 10 squared. So then you got D equals the square root of 0 plus 100. Okay, so D equals the square root of 100. So D equals 10. This is your diameter though, right? So your radius is, and I hear you guys saying, R equals 5. So now I have HK and I have R. Now I can go in, and that's what we're going to do now, is go ahead and solve or plug it into our formula. So, tell me again the standard form. Now, I just told you guys a second ago that you would not need to memorize that one table from yesterday. However, you will need to know the differences between the vertex form or the parabola form, standard form, and the circle standard form. Okay? So now I plug it in. I have x minus 2 squared plus
So the quiz will be 10.
y minus 3 squared equals 25. And tomorrow's quiz is only over 10-1 and 10-2.
Now, are we only solving to find the full standard equation? Or are we
On this. Okay? This is part. You can have multiple different questions. This is one of those types of questions. But good.
It's going to be asking us, like, what's the center? And
Yes, that's what we're going to next. Okay, so the next thing. Any questions on this? Our next thing that we're going to do now is find the center and radius, given the formula. The first one is extremely easy. Okay, what is the center?
Don't know, you tell me.
Ha 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 ha.
0, 0.
0, 0. How do you know it's 0, 0?
Because it says there's no H or K.
There's no H or K. I had a girl in fifth period say, hey, there's no number by the x squared. There's no number by the y squared. If there's no number by the x squared or the y squared, that must mean it's disappeared. It's 0. It's got to be gone. Okay? The only way a number disappears is by being 0. Okay, so C is 0, 0. What is R? 4. How do we get that? Square root of 16, right? Okay, any hang-ups on this? Okay, let's look at the next example right to the next of it. What is my H and K, or what is my center?
0, -2, -2.
0, -2.
Why negative 2?
Because it's the opposite. We talked about that at the very beginning. This is always going to be the opposite because they're supposed to be what? Minus. The only way that becomes a plus is by having a negative pushed up against it. Okay, what is my radius?
2 square roots of 2.
Okay, or start off with square roots of 12, and then we got to simplify a radical. If you guys remember, it's the same thing as square root of 4 times the square root of 2. Well, square root of 4 is 2.
4 times 3.
Sorry, 3. I do that every time. So 4 times 3. Okay, and then you have 2 comes out because square root of 4 is 2, and then square roots of 3. So here's the center. Here's the radius. Any questions on that? Let's go ahead and look at our next one. What's the center?
-3,
-3, -5. My radius? Square root of 50,
It's 5 square roots of 2.
which comes out to be 5 square roots of 2 if you rationalize, you simplify the radical. Okay? Any questions on that? Alright, so far in our notes we've incorporated, and it's pretty easy, and we've incorporated our distance formula, our midpoint formula. I also said that we're going to incorporate some of that completing the square, so this is where that comes in. What is the significant change on this next example?
It has no
It has a single x. Okay, it has a single x. Obviously it's not in standard form because now you have a single x. We don't have a single x in our standard form. So let's see how we can work that out. What I'm going to do is this. First thing is I need to get what? Where?
Y by itself.
Ooh.
X squared.
No, we're not doing y by itself.
J,
Minus
-7.
Okay, let's put the 7 on the other side. So we add 7 to both sides. We put the 7 on the other side. Now, let's go ahead and reorder this. Let's put this as x squared plus 6x plus blank plus y squared equals 7. Now, is the y squared okay?
Yeah.
Yeah. What does that tell you about k?
It's 0.
It's 0. Okay? The x is our only concern here. But if I complete the square here, okay, what will I end up doing once I complete the square? I'll end up factoring it, creating something that looks like x plus or minus something squared, right? Okay? So, if I complete the square, I get what? 9. Now, it's 6 divided by 2, right? Which is 3. Okay? 3 squared is 9. Okay? So again, for those of you guys who couldn't hear over Aiden's random talking, 6 divided by 2. I know, but don't get so far ahead that we can't teach at the same time. 6 divided by 2 is 3. 3 squared is 9. Now, if you remember from the parabola or the vertex form, we had to do plus 9 and then out here you put minus 9, right? Because ultimately what we're doing was we're going to take it to one side and then bring it back. Because we kept y by itself or x by itself. In this case, so where do all the constants go?
To the right.
To the right. So I can, if I add it to this side, I need to do what to this side? Add it to that side and I can leave it there now. I can leave it there. So I'm going to go ahead and put a plus 9 here too. So now if I simplify this down, when I factor this, I get what? X plus 3 squared plus y squared equals 16. So now, given this, okay, I'm set. I'm in my form. I need to figure out my center. What's the center now?
-3, 0.
-3, 0. What's my radius? 4. Not too bad. If you're getting good at completing the square, that makes your life a whole lot easier, right? Okay? Any questions on that? Let's look at our next example. Similar issue, okay? Let's go ahead and rewrite this in the order. So we have x squared, okay, plus 14x, right? Because I got to get that negative 14x back with my x, okay? Plus, let's leave a blank, okay? Plus y squared, plus 6y, plus leave a blank, equals negative 50. So now we have to complete the square twice, right? Okay, that's all that means. We have to complete it twice. Nothing different than what we just did, just completing the square twice. So, what do we goes in that first blank? 49. Second blank, that means if I have 49 here, I've got to add 49 here as well. Second blank, 9. If I add 9 here, you have to add 9 there. So now if I simplify this or factor it, I get what?
X plus 7 squared.
X plus 7 squared
Plus y plus 3 squared.
plus y plus 3 squared equals 8. So now let's go ahead and answer the question. What's our center? Negative 7, negative 3. And our radius?
2 square roots of 2.
2 square roots of 2. Does anybody not know how to... Everybody understand the simplifying radicals part? Okay. Really doesn't get much more difficult than that. Okay. Let's look at our next example. And we look at our next example. I'm actually going to skip the next example and come back to it. I want to make sure that we get this one with the tangent on it. I think we'll have time for both, but I want to just make sure we get this one. Partly because I know how students think, and a lot of times what students think is, oh my God, what's the tangent? Okay? And you'll forget and you'll skip it because you just see a word that you don't like or you don't remember from geometry or whatever. What is a tangent?
Straight off the line.
Someone do the triangle.
Is that
It's on
like
your calculator.
I have something like
It's
90
on your calculator.
90 degrees.
Kind of. Somebody said something about straight off of something. What does that mean?
Perpendicular to the
Okay.
dinosaur.
Basically what you have is this, okay?
We're going somewhere.
Oh, it's
Yeah, we
perpendicular
know.
to
Next
the
to
radius.
90 degree angle.
Yeah, okay. Now look, you basically have a circle,
Circle.
and then you might have a point, right? So here's your point right there.
What's why?
And then what happens is you have a line that hits that one point on the circle. That would be like a tangent.
Oh, I remember that.
Okay? And somebody in my 5th period brought up a pinwheel. Looks like a pinwheel. I guess you probably did an activity where you had tangents that made it look like a pinwheel. Okay? Yeah. I didn't get it at first, but now I got it. Okay? So that's that. So now, let's take a look at our problem.
I wrote that down.
No, well, you're going to have a circle here in a second. That's fine. That's good to see what a tangent is. Good. All right. So the center. So now we're wanting to write in standard form. We're writing right with a standard form of a point that the center, circle that has a center of -8, -7, and is tangent to the y-axis. So if I draw, it's better to draw those pictures. So I'm going to go ahead and draw a picture. So here's my x and y axis.
What is that?
It's a very
So here's x. And here's y. So I know I have a point at, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, right?
Yeah.
And then over here, no, I need to go to 8 this way. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. So I have a point at -8 and -7. So right here. Haha.
What about? There you go.
No, I know, I couldn't get my thing to right. Okay, so basically you have a point right here. Okay, at -8 over -7. Now I have a circle, and the y-axis is its tangent. Okay, so that means there's going to be a point where?
On the y-axis.
Where?
On the left.
at negative 7. So I'm going to have a point basically right here. Okay, and because I know that my radius and all my lines are equidistant from this point, if I have a point here and a point here, okay, where else, well, how long is my radius? Let's go with that.
It's 8. I
Eight,
mean 4. Purple times. Wait, is it 8? 8.
seven,
Remember, this is
eight.
the center of my circle. Okay, that's the center. I'm asking for the radius. What is my radius? It's 8. It's 8. I know, and I wasn't arguing, but you guys start second guessing yourself. So I just sat there and let y'all throw out numbers.
Because you sit there and you're like, no.
Bro, you allowed Luke to.
I didn't say anything.
You gave us the stupid
Wrong.
You have to make your right answer. Someone said 8.
Yes.
You said that all of the points are equidistant from the radius, right?
Yes,
Center?
from the center.
But you go up 7, but over is 8. So
So that's not.
What do
You make this
Yeah, I don't see how
complicated.
you got that second
You gotta
point
speak
there.
English.
If you're saying
Okay.
that'd be on the outside.
Here we go.
Oh my god.
So if I have a point, if this is my center, and I have a radius of 8, and this is negative 7, I'm going to have a point up here.
Oh,
Right?
okay,
So I'm going to have a point right here as well.
Skadoosh.
Okay?
Where?
You really can't see it right
Right there.
now. Okay.
Okay? So now I'm going to have, and again, this isn't going to be the best drawing, but I have,
That's beautiful. Wait, why would it be like this?
That's awesome.
okay?
Like a freaking second.
I feel like that should be over one.
That is not a circle.
Oh yeah, I didn't go farther over, enough over, excuse me, sorry.
Oh,
Yeah,
my
that is not a
God.
circle, that is center, right?
Okay, do we want to critique the drawing, or do we want to go ahead and
Learn.
finish?
It is a.
Okay, so it should be here, excuse me.
How do you know that?
Okay, here's the deal. Let's stop for a second, because I keep hearing, how do I know that, and I keep hearing random retarded stuff, okay? So let's stop. Now, we said we have a tangent. So if I draw my circle from this point, let me just show you the circle. So here's my circle, part of my circle, right? And again, if I make this point bigger so that we can see it, okay? Basically, somebody broke my podium. I keep getting stuck to it. Okay, basically, what happens is this line, this y-axis, is a tangent. It's hitting one point on my circle, and that's what creates the tangent. You have to know what a tangent is if you don't understand that.
I didn't read the
Like
top
the pin
part.
So- So here we have our tangent right here.
That makes
Okay,
sense.
so we have a point from here to here because the y-axis is a tangent. So we know it's 8 units long because from the center to any point on the circle. Okay, well, this is the point that's on the circle. I know that because it's a tangent. I know this is 8 units because of that. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. I know that's 8 units, absolute value. Now, to get this other point, I basically said, okay, I'm going to go 8 units over again. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and then 8 units down. That'll be 8 units down. This is negative 7, plus that 1 is 8 units down. Every point is the same, so that's 8 units also. And then I'd go down further, and so forth. Okay?
The distance
So
from
radius
the
is 8.
center.
Yeah, distance is always the same. So yes, long story short, or long story longer, okay, the distance is 8. Okay? Or the radius is 8. So, in that case, I now know my R is equal to 8. Okay, what is H? H is negative 8. K is negative 7. Now we write our formula, or our standard form, which is
8 squared.
x
Minus.
plus 8 squared plus y plus 7 squared equals 64. Okay? Yeah, it's really not that hard. I just didn't want you to freak out because there's a tangent.
See what that?
Now,
Everyone's
your homework, I'm going to write it up here.
We erase that.
It's a good idea.
Yeah, see,
It's page 577 through 578. 13 through 21 odd.
That's it.
Okay, 25, 29.
You can't see. It doesn't matter, just listen to what he says.
Okay, sorry, 25, 29,
Oh, really? You know this?
33, 35, and 37.
25, 29, 38, 35.
It's on Blackboard as well. Huh?
But he was
I pulled it off this
that
day.
handwriting, that is pristine.